Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's regular meeting for October 24th, 2017 for the Board of Supervisors. Call to order at 9 o'clock. Pledge of allegiance. Supervisor Medina, will you please lead us off?
Ready. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. Next item on the agenda, acknowledge certificate of posting.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. We will now go to presentations and recognitions. We're going to move first item off the agenda and go to presentation by Ms. Shelby O'Neill, founder. Supervisor Patella, will you please lead us off on that presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll invite Shelby to the podium with me.
Hi.
Good morning. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, Board Supervisors, and the public, I have with me Shelby O'Neill, and she is a very important person. She resides in my district, of course, and and I've known her mom and dad and her grandmother for quite a number of years, all my life, as a matter of fact. But a few weeks ago, I came across Shelby, and she was telling me about a special project that she's working on. And I think it's as important to San Bernardino County as it is to Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. We are all in the Monterey Bay area and the ocean, and our water and pollution affects us all. And one of the project that she's working on, which, it was strange in the fact that, I was in the store just recently buying a cup of coffee in San Juan, and you pick up a plastic stirrer, and you stir your coffee once, and then you just throw it away. And I thought, what a waste. It takes oil to make that straw. It's plastic. It lasts forever. And then God knows where it ends up. And so I invited Shelby because happens to be her project. And I would like her to explain to all of us the importance of what she's working on and where she's at, and we want to support her, I'm sure. Thank you, Shelby.
Well, thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shelby O'Neill. I am 16 years old, and I'm currently a junior at the high school here at San Benito. I'm here to ask for No Straw November to become a proclamation. I founded a nonprofit called Junior Ocean Guardians for my Girl Scout Gold Award, which is equivalent to an Eagle Scout. I'm dedicated to teaching the youth sustainable practices and making sure we clean up our oceans before there's more plastic than actual fish. What I've learned over time, and I'm sure that you're aware, that plastic pollution is silently killing off our ocean. Growing up in California, I have a love for the land fundamentally in my blood. I am blessed to have such a considerably open-minded government compared to other states. I am asking you all to help set the standard once again to a pressing issue. If No Straw in November becomes a proclamation, it would bring awareness to the issue of single-use plastic, and it would get an important topic into conversation. I brought some activity books that I use as an aid to educate the future generations. I have the support of restaurant owners, large corporations and organizations, and Girl Scouts behind me. I currently have Girl Scout Council supporting No Straw November from Alaska to Maine, Japan, and Hawaii. I also have the support of the Coastal Commission as they have passed a statewide proclamation. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
So,
I done coloring already, Mark.
good.
All right. Next item on the agenda is County Administrator Office, Ray Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite up our management analyst, Louis Valdez. He's going to go ahead and update the board where we're at with the new system that we're bringing in on RMA. He's been spearheading this project. Louis?
Thank you, Mr. Espinosa. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the time to present to you a project I have been working on for at least the last 6 months, and I'm finally very happy able to report to the board that we have arrived at the go-live date for the Acela Land Use Management System. On the screens, you will see the map of, a piece of the map of San Benito County that is being projected through our GIS system. And we have a gentleman here from our deployment team, from the Avocet deployment team, Farouk Sabji. Farouk is going to provide the board a demonstration of the system. We are currently in the process of working out at RMA with the staff to go through some of the training issues involved in the use of the system. Tomorrow we will have a few folks from the development community that we have invited to show them the system, but Farouk is here to show the board what we have done, and I wanted to just make real clear to the board that this is a first step in the deployment of the system. We will continue to work on improving the system and making upgrades as we move forward, but we're real pleased because this is going to do a number of things. Number one, it's going to provide us, the county administrative office and the RMA director's office, a baseline by which to be able to know that fees that are being calculated and charged to developments are the fees that the county is actually going to collect on a consistent and a verifiable basis. That's very important. In the past, there have been concerns, well, did the right fee get charged? Did we calculate that correctly? All of those fees are being entered. The second thing to that point that we will be able to do is as the fees change, and as you all know, we're in the middle of the update of the development impact fees, our staff is going to be trained on how to update those fees in the system. So if there are changes that need to be made, we'll have the ability to be able to update those. And thirdly, the system it works in real time. So we'll be able to pull reports and provide the administration, the board, and the community with reports on how we are doing and where their project is in terms of status. Folks will be able to log in remotely via the Citizen Access Portal once we go live with it, and they'll be able to pay the fees via a credit card system as well. Okay, so Farouk, if you want to come up and provide the board with a quick demonstration of one of the record types that you created, I'd appreciate it very much.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, board, thank you very much for having us here. I don't want to take up too much of your time and get too technical with the solution that we've deployed, but what I'd like you to show you today is the basic use of the system that the staff are going to be using to create permits, go through an application process within the software. So what we have right here is our web-based, cloud-based solution, and it's fully integrated to the current GIS system that the county currently has. What we're looking at here is a real-time map of the GIS system, and we're seeing different coordinates, and within each coordinate I'll be able to click on each coordinate, identify from that parcel detailed parcel information. So as I go through here and select a specific parcel, I'm able to show the GIS information. This GIS information is all the information that's currently collected by the current GIS system. So we're able to see things like zoning, fire zones, the current address, the current owners of that parcel, any sort of fire risks, the tax year, etc. So the staff have real-time access to all of this information. As a result of that, they're able to create a brand new permit. Let me just unblock that here. They're able to go through the application process of creating a permit right from the GIS map. So I'm able to now go through and identify. I'm going to create a building record within our system. I'm going to do a building residential record here, and let's just assume that it's a building addition. While the software now loads, it's going to the GIS system, it's grabbing the parcel information, the address information, the owner information about that, and it's populating that into our database. So now we have real-time information that's completely accurate as the GIS will give us. Okay? So I'm just going to let the system load here and grab all that information from the GIS. As a result of going through this application process, we'll be able to correctly and accurately calculate the right fees for the type of permit that's being requested. Okay? So as I load up here, you'll see the system is now automatically populated what the address was of that parcel of land that we've selected. the exact parcel information, as well as who the current owner is of that parcel. As we go through, we're also completely linked to the state of California's database of licensed professionals, which is licensed contractors, etc. So I can go through here, scroll up a little bit here in the licensed professional area, and I can identify architects, designers, engineers. And as long as I have their license number, the system's going to automatically, in real time, verify that that license is an active license and can be used as part of the permit process. Okay? We're able to identify who the applicants are of the permit, and then start going through and entering key pieces of information about that permit process. All of this data that we're going to enter into the system will then play into the calculation of the correct fees that need to be collected. And all those fees have been verified against all the correct ordinances and statutes that need to be there. Okay? Again, it's a work in progress. We are now live with the system, and we're going to continue to expand the system to make it a more automated system. Okay? And as we get to that automated system, we'll be able to open up what we call the citizen access or the public portal. So developers are able to go online, make these permit requests online, have the system automatically calculate the correct fees, and pay those fees online so the work can begin. Internally on the back end, we have very detailed workflow processes that guide the staff through the correct process to going through the approval of that permit application. Okay? I'll take you inside of a record and see exactly what a permit application looks like within the system. We are in our development environment right now, so you'll see some fun data, hopefully. We have 3 modules that we're using this for currently. We're using it for the planning department, the building department, as well as code enforcement. So all 3 areas have been trained and have been testing the system to confirm that they were able to use the system both inside what we call the back office or in the offices, as well as out in the field. And we did some tests yesterday using the system off of any sort of Wi-Fi network and out in the real world. So if we take a look at what an actual record or a permit looks like within our system, I'm just going to go inside here. We're actually in live data here. While that's loading up, I'm going to take you into what's called the public portal. The public portal is where the citizens are able to go online and request an application permit. So here we've got exactly what the public would be looking at. So they have the ability to go into the building module, the planning module, or go into code enforcement. There's also the ability for people to go online and file complaints, and those complaints can be made anonymously or with them logging and creating an account. Those complaints can then be followed up inside the back office and taken out into the field for further inspections. And those inspections can all be graded and then played towards against any sort of permits that are being applied for in the future for that land. This is what a permit would look like inside of our system. So on our summary page here, we have all the detailed information for the request for that permit, identifying who the applicant was, identifying the type of permit, and identifying any sort of fees that may be have been assessed against that. We're also able to identify how much money is still owed, and that plays into the AR that's going to be going into the accounting system. So that's going to be a real-time interface or a nightly interface where we're going to take all of the payment data, all the fee data that we have in the system, and send that to the accounting system. So the accounting system on a nightly basis will know exactly what was billed out and how and what was paid for. The last thing I'll show you here, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, is what we call our workflow within the system. So for this specific building permit, what you're going to identify here is what are the tasks, what are the upcoming tasks, and what are the in-progress tasks that need to occur. These tasks can be assigned internally within departments as well as externally to departments such as fire, such as environmental health. So they'll be able to log in and use the system and apply any sort of conditions of approval, or able to identify that this permit is okay to proceed. Okay. From an online perspective, a public user or a citizen is able to go in and identify that they're going to make an application for a specific building permit or a planning permit. We're able to display to them all their current permits that they have outstanding, and it's also going to identify to them if they have any fees that they owe us. So we can identify, or we can implement some business rules that don't allow them to apply for another permit if there's outstanding fees, etc. They can pay these fees directly online through an online credit card interface, and that money can be put into the bank in real time. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see about the system?
Supervisor Medina? Patello?
No, sir. No, that's good.
Andre? Supervisor Rivas?
Good, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you.
Great,
Good
thank you very much.
Okay.
I want to, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to thank RMA staff for working on this. It's been a process, and they've had to do their regular job, but also to work on getting the system. It's very crucial, very, very important for us to keep track of our finances and to know where we stand. So thank you for everyone that's been part of that, as well as Louis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. Good
Thank-
presentation.
And I want to thank the Auditor's Office, the Information Technology Department. Both of those offices were instrumental in helping us get to this point. The interface that Farouk alluded to is going to be key in migrating that data, that financial data over every night. So it's going to really help keep us up to speed and really help the RMA department stay on task in terms of the accounting and finance side. So we're really happy, and we'll continue to provide the board progress reports as we move forward.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Thank you. Okay. Actually, is there anyone from the public on this item? None? I'll close it. Okay. Now we'll go to public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 54954-2. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Marty Richmond.
Here's two more for you. Good morning, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I was honored recently by receiving an Advocacy of the Year award from Senator Canella's office for my advocacy for the library. I was embarrassed about it because I don't have any accomplishments to show. Nothing. Yeah, I'm in here advocating, but what's the result? Well, nothing. One of the big weaknesses we have in this county is we don't have any post-secondary education. We don't have an education center. We don't have a junior college. We don't have a hookup to a regular college. We've got promises galore. Well, we're not going to get it because, well, one of the reasons is the board hasn't gone out and fought for it. Well, if we're not going to get that, we need to get something that's going to lift our ability to educate the youth in this county so that they can be competitive. Unfortunately, in the last 4 years, the San Benito High School has not even achieved the California average on the SAT scores in any of the 4 areas or in the overall score. They are doing better now. We'll see if it results in a better SAT score when they have to go and compete for spaces at college. One of the things you could do for them is help us get a library. Now, we've given up on any hope of getting you to help us pay for it, so we're going to go out and do that ourselves. We'll go directly to the public and ask them to support a bond for a library. But we'd at least like you to get out of the way. We'd at least like you to look at some of these rundown, old, unused, underused areas that belong to the county, such as the jail next door. Well, it used to be the jail next door. I don't know what it's called now. It's a big concrete old building, and see if it's a suitable area to build something new. I know it's come up and it's going to come on your agenda, but, frankly, based on history, if we wait for you guys, our current kindergartners will be grandfathers before you get around to it. So I'm going to encourage you to get moving, and do something. At least take a look at your spaces. Let's not make this another old hospital project that lasts for 2 decades. Let's not make this another federal bridge project that lasts for 3 decades. Let's try and do something before these children are on Social Security for the elderly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Gentleman Martinez.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Belén Martinez, and I'm here to read this letter for Alma Battlefield because she's not here. She had to leave. She had to be with a patient at the hospital, a Stepford Hospital. Buenos días, supervisores. Mi nombre es Alma Battlefield. Soy miembro de SEIU 2015 y proveedora de cuidado en el hogar.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Alma Butterfield, and I'm a home care provider and a member of SEIU Local 2015.
He pasado los últimos 30 años cuidando a personas mayores y con discapacidades y he sido parte del programa de cuidado en el hogar por los últimos 7 años.
I spent the last 30 years taking care of the elderly and people with disabilities, and I've been part of the IHSS program for the last 7 years.
También trabajé en un hospital donde obtuve mi certificado de asistente de enfermera.
I also work in a hospital where I received my nurse assistant certificate.
Haciendo este trabajo por tanto tiempo, poco a poco empezamos a desarrollar un lazo con nuestros clientes.
Doing this job for so long, you start developing ties, relationships with your clients.
Por muchos años cuidé de un pequeño, lo alimentaba por su tubo y me aseguraba que tomara su medicina a tiempo, además de innumerables cuidados que le proveía.
A while ago, I used to take care of a child who I would feed through a tube, and I would make sure that he would get his medicines and another number of activities that would perform for him.
La madre del menor me pedía a menudo que hiciera tareas fuera del trabajo que me tocaba realizar para su hijo.
The mother of the child would ask me to do tasks outside of my work for his child.
Yo hacía esas tareas aunque muchas veces no se me recompensara porque me interesaba la salud del pequeño.
A lot of the times I would perform those tasks without getting compensated for my work because I care about the well-being of the child.
En una ocasión, uno de mis clientes me dijo que debido a las últimas elecciones que el presidente me iban a deportar.
A while back, one of my clients said that because of the last elections, I was going to get deported.
En ese momento no le dije nada, pero al siguiente día le dije que yo soy una ciudadana americana y que merezco el mismo respeto y derechos que todos los demás.
At that time, I didn't say anything, but I told him that I deserve dignity and respect just like everyone else.
Este es un trabajo muchas veces no bien recompensado. Pasamos tiempos difíciles y siempre damos más para asegurarnos que nuestros clientes estén a salvo.
This is not a very well compensated job, and we always give more to make sure that our clients are safe.
Les brindamos dignidad y confort cuando los cuidamos en sus hogares.
We bring dignity and comfort at their homes.
En otros condados, los trabajadores de cuidado en el hogar están ganando $12.50 con acceso a seguro de salud.
In other counties, they're making $12.50 with healthcare access.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry, your 3 minutes has gone up. I gave you more than 3 minutes.
Well, pues done.
Mande. Nomás 3 minutos y le di un poquito más también.
No, ya está bien.
Ya está.
Muchas gracias.
Well, we're translating. We can't do it in 3 minutes.
I know, but we'll have to give everybody the same fair opportunity, 3 minutes. Otherwise, we'll go beyond the 3 minutes. And I apologize, but that's just... Thank you. Next speaker.
Those are all the speaker cards, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else from the public? None? Okay. Okay. All right. Now we will go to department head announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have an announcement out of our Health and Human Services.
Mr. Ray, can
Yes.
you, before the members of the public leave, I actually had an opportunity to meet with the in-home support a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Are we going to discuss this in closed session?
Yes,
As well?
yes.
Okay.
Today it's scheduled. The discussion concerning this particular group is going to be discussed with the board in closed session.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll be coming back. We'll be actually meeting. We're going to have our labor team meet with your labor team, and then we'll move on from there.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Espinosa. Go ahead, department head.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have our Health and Human Services Department. We have Jim Riding Sword here to give a quick announcement to your board.
Good morning. We want to just brief you briefly on the flu clinic that's coming up on Thursday, and I've asked Dr. Gail Newell to give you that briefing.
Good morning. It's that time of year again. Free flu clinic for everybody in the county. Everyone over the age of 6 months is eligible to come, including pregnant women. We encourage all pregnant women to get their vaccine regardless of trimester. It's supposed to be a really bad flu season this year. The early reports from Asia, where it hits first, are that it's a very virulent group of viruses this year. But the good news is that our vaccines that our research scientists have developed look like they're very effective against this group of viruses. So vaccines are the biggest public health success story, and we encourage every member of the county to come and get their vaccines. It's this Thursday from 1:30 to 6:30 with a special half hour before from 1 to 1:30 for county employees. And I have a stack of flyers here, so I'll leave them and the sign to remind everybody to come on over on Thursday. Great photo opportunity for electeds as well. Roll up your shirt sleeve and get your photo taken. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you, and we'll be happy to take your picture.
And a shot.
Is the shot in the arm or in the backside?
In the arm.
Okay, that's
for you,
good.
For you, for you, we can make special provisions.
For Anthony, give him the Gauge 18.
I'll be there.
We'll be there. We'll be there Thursday.
We have another announcement out of administration. I'd like to invite Melinda Casillas. She's our budget director. I want to give a thanks for a lot of work that Christina Slavich has done for our county last year and a half or so. And Melinda's probably going to go into a few more details with it, but she's going to be on to New Horizons here soon. So, Melinda?
Yes, many of you are very familiar with Christina. We hired her about 18 months ago on a short 4-month project to help us with the budget, with some new software implementation that we had. Once the budget was finished, we asked her to stay on a little bit longer, and she helped the clerk of the board with a lot of with some meetings, and then also probably 4 or 5 file cabinets full of contracts and documents that she scanned into our Novus Laserfuge system. And she's kept those up since then. And then she went on to help with the auditor's office in producing their state controller's financial statements. And then we've spent months doing some budget scenarios. And then we moved into budget, and then she helped out at the RMA department with some special projects, and then also filling in with the shortage of staff. And we've had another budget season, so she's helped with HR. We've used Christina as much as we possibly could. We're very grateful for all the help that she's done, the professionalism, the smiles that she comes to work with every day. We're very sad to be losing her. She's just accepted a position in the San Francisco Bay Area with Restoration Hardware, and she's going to be part of their inventory management team. So our loss is their gain. But again, we'd like to say thank you to Christina and wish her all the best of success in her new endeavors.
Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have to accept her resignation, don't we? And I don't see that agendized today.
Well,
Nor do I ever want to see it agendized.
I have to say that everybody's been very disappointed to hear that she's leaving us.
I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everything that Linda said about you is absolutely true. You brighten the office, and I can always tell you are a hard worker, and you will be very successful in your future endeavors.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And I just want to say that when the staff was being changed around, you were the odd person out, and they put you out there by the fax machine and the shredder, and you just kept working. And that a good indication of a good worker. You will succeed in life. We wish you the best in all your new endeavors, and come back and visit us, when you're very important out there.
Thank you. I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. We really appreciate all the work you've done for us. We really do. So,
thank you. Thank you all. It's been a really great experience, and I just really want to thank Linda and Ray for giving me the opportunity. I really learned a lot, and I'm going to miss everyone here, so thank you.
Thanks.
That's all the announcements we have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now we will go to board announcements. Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do have just one announcement this evening. I've worked with some of our county departments to organize an opioid information night at San Benito High School. It's an information night specifically for parents and students, but all are welcome. It's this evening at the auditorium there at San Benito High School, 1220 Monterey Street from 6:30 to 8. Certainly, having joined the opioid task force, the county, the newly created opioid task force, we certainly have a crisis on our hands, and the statistics speak for themselves as far as the issue that we face here in San Benito County. And so I certainly just want to make that brief announcement. All are welcome this evening, San Benito High School, 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Supervisor Munzer?
None.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
Yes, the chairman and I had a COG meeting this past week, actually a special meeting, to discuss whether or not we should pursue transportation sales tax again in the November 18 election. And we're still doing some work, and I'm sure that will be part of maybe the chairman's report as well. We're do another survey, see how receptive the public will be to a special tax, what level, how long, and what projects to include. We're still having a pretty good dialogue with our partners on the Council of Governments. And the other item, in the regular meeting, we discussed the timing of Highway 156. That's still it's moving forward to begin construction in 2019 in the spring. I think the city of Hollister has requested that that timeline be moved up. They asked if we would be interested in sending a similar letter. I don't know how effective it would be, but that's what they did. So I don't know if the chairman may have more to add to this report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Medina?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. Two comments. The first one is, yes, Supervisor Botello was going to announce about the COG, and you said it perfectly. Thank you. There's no new information to say. Is that we're going to put the item on the agenda to discuss to put a letter to discuss with Cal Caltrans, how to expedite Highway 156. So right at the next available meeting, let's do that. And yes, we're thinking of going back to the public for a sales tax for just roads. And I think the more the emphasis this time will probably be about fixing our local roads and potholes. That will probably be top of consideration. On a lighter note, I attended Chispa's grand opening. 41 low-income affordable apartments were available to family members. I really want to thank the staff, City Hollister, Chispa, and all those members of the community that helped bring this project together. During my presentation, I said the fruits and the success of a good project is when you get to see a family turn a key into their apartment in which they can say, I can call it home. And that was a success. And I really want to thank Supervisor Munzers for attending the meeting and showing support for these type of projects. We will now go to I apologize. We will now go to consent agenda item. Is there any items that the board wish to pull out? Supervisor Medina?
No, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
No.
Supervisor Munzer?
None.
Supervisor Rivas? Anyone from the public?
And I have one item.
Yes, Ray.
Yes, I'd like to make one slight correction with item number 12. There was a typo. Instead of it being $7,500, it should have been $13,000.
$15,000.
Just a correction on that.
$15,000 correct.
13 or 15?
$13,000.
Sorry about that. $13,000. Let the record reflect that. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move consent as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 15. First item on is County Administrator Office present 16-17 fiscal year in financial report along with the first quarter report of 17-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to invite up our budget director, Melinda Casillas. She'll be highlighting for your board a fourth quarter report as well as a first quarter report and how we've done over this last year and how we're doing this year. So, Melinda.
Good morning. Now that we are into the first quarter, almost now the second quarter of the fiscal year 17-18, we wanted to give you an update of how fiscal year 16-17 ended. These are unaudited numbers. However, in working with the auditor's office, there should be few, if any, minor changes to these numbers. So for the general fund, we had revenues of $41,128,920 and expenditures in the amount of $39,602,446. So we had revenues over expenditures of approximately $1.5 million, and this amount of money will be added back to our fund balance. Some extraordinary items that we had this year. We had the January floods, and currently we've spent $994,000. These numbers are included in the previous numbers that I just gave you. And then we are still keeping a close eye on general relief every month. There was a total of $300,000 spent on general relief. This was over budget by $165,000. However, we have an IHSS MOE that we offset to cover that difference. We projected 8% vacancies in the general fund. So it was a budget of $1.3 million. And whether you want to look at that in a positive or a negative look, we were able to, our vacancies totaled about $1.3 million, almost the exact same amount as what we budgeted. RMA was one of the biggest departments. County Council had some vacancies through most of the year, as did the auditor and the IT department. And then we also moved our 2% COLA up one quarter to the beginning of July 2017, and so that amounted in approximately $250,000. Some of the economic indicators that we look at throughout the year, the biggest being property taxes and sales taxes. You can see that property taxes were 3% over what we budgeted. Supplemental property taxes were 121% over what we budgeted. There's a lot of activity going on with buildings and new buildings, additions, that kind of thing, and so we capture that through our supplemental property taxes. Again, property tax transfer, where properties exchanging hands, basically, but a lot of it's between a builder and a new homeowner. That was an increase of about 33%. Sales tax and public safety tax, those kind of go hand in hand, and so those were slightly up, altogether about 2%. Building permits and public work permits were down a little bit, and we're keeping an eye on that, trying to decipher a little bit between the economy and also the shortage in staffing out at the RMA department. Any questions? And then all the details for this information are in your packet, should you have any questions or want to review that further. I'm not going to go over them right now, but I'm just letting you know that they're in your packet. And so the general fund for the first quarter of fiscal year 17-18, I thought you might be interested a little bit in salary and benefits, where we are at this point. Our salaries are at 20%. You would expect them to be at roughly 25%. Temporary help is around 21%. Overtime, which is something that we keep an eye on consistently, is at 40%, but that's being covered by the regular salaries being below what we would anticipate them to be. They help cover vacancies. Vacancies help cover overtime. Payroll taxes, again, are about 20%. PERS is about 22%, and so overall we're about 21%, where we would anticipate being at 25%. Contingencies, as of our last board meeting, we budgeted $500,000 in general contingencies this year. We used $179,000 for our maintenance of effort with SB1 funding, and then we also allocated $350,000 towards Pacheco levee repairs. So as you can see, we're just slightly over what we budgeted for this year in general contingencies. Any questions?
Supervisor Patello?
No.
Supervisor Medina?
We should also, real quickly...
Hold on, Medina. Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, the expenditure of $994,000 for the floods, that was a couple slides prior to this.
For the January floods?
Yes. Does that, I might not have the answer, but what percentage of that is at the Lovers Lane area?
I believe, Kevin's not here, I believe the majority of that is from...
Right? Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor Patel?
Yeah, and if that's the case, do we somewhere expect the revenue to be offset with FEMA or USDA on that expenditure that Supervisor Medina mentioned?
So at the time that we were closing the budget and closing the books for the 16-17 year, we had received notification from, I believe, OES saying that, yes, they accepted the fact that there has been state of emergency here. However, we don't have any revenue offsetting that at this time because we don't have enough information from OES to know how much they're going to be reimburse us. So there is not any revenue that's been accrued in this number.
Okay. Now, with that being said, should we have somebody assigned to go after either the state OES or the federal government to get that reimbursement? Because I was under the impression that once we were declared as an emergency, and we did that again today, that we're in line for some reimbursement, right. And we did have some other emergencies elsewhere besides Lover's Lane areas. It's countywide.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Ray?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Supervisor Botello. We actually hired a firm to help us, to assist us with that. I think you recall you went to, an RCRC meeting, right, and directed staff to look at that. We actually did bring that back to the board. They are working with us. The last I've heard from our OES manager is that we are going to be receiving some funds in his conversation with FEMA and so forth. But again, it's just this is going through the process. It takes time to go through. So again, exactly what number it is, we're not sure. He's not sure, but we will be receiving some money and to offset this number.
Yeah, and I agree, not incorporated into the budget report right now, but I don't want us to drop the ball in pursuing that reimbursement. And I think I mentioned at one point in time that we should talk to Santa Cruz County. I think they have a special consultant that kind of goes after those reimbursements.
And that's who we brought on board. So we did bring that person,
that
great. Group on
Thank
board.
You.
Yeah.
Supervisor Medina?
One more thing, too. If Tom and Laura could stand up. Tom and Laura? I just want to recognize both of you for the revenue side. We often talk about expenses, but just want to thank you for a great job you guys are doing on the revenue side, bringing in that revenue. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Melinda?
We have one more item that we felt we should discuss at this point. I believe that Karen Overstreet, this Ag Commissioner, has sent you a letter on Friday regarding her budget status. She has, to her benefit, she has worked very hard to bring in extra grants and that kind of through her department. That has unfortunately left her in a little bit of a predicament in that she has more revenue than expenditures to use towards her gas tax reimbursement by the tune of approximately $256,000. The gas tax that she would be receiving is approximately $125,000, and so in order to receive that gas tax, she essentially needs for the county to basically give her $256,000 or set aside $256,000 for her. We've had a lot of discussions. We're not really sure how to go about this, being that expending $256,000 in order to get $125,000 in gas tax is the best use of our money. However, it also takes her out of the, the bucket of getting gas tax money, and that might jeopardize future revenues in that aspect also.
So we wanted to bring it to your board's attention. We will be meeting with her. She's unfortunately out at, I think, a conference right now. So upon her return, staff will be meeting with her. We'll probably come back to your board with an update. I know that she needs to put out an ag report soon, so we may be bringing this back to your board sooner than later. But we wanted to make sure your board was apprised of this and staff's concerns with regards to spending more for receiving less. So we just wanted to make sure the board's aware of that.
Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ray, would this be appropriate for the audit committee to review and kind of hash out through the audit committee?
I don't know. That's really a Joe Paul question. You should go up to the. You should go up to the podium.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Sure. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, one thing I think that can't be overlooked, that needs to be discussed is, I know we've had these presentations in the past, Mr. CAO, but I think that we need to have another in-depth discussion about PERS and about retirement costs. Because as we all know, I mean, PERS, the cost of PERS is going to crush our ability to provide services moving forward. And this is not only a San Benito County problem, this is a local government problem, it's a state problem, and we need to have that discussion, because as much as we have our priorities, funding levies, building new libraries, we have to come to the realization that we need to do something. And so I think this board needs to be kept abreast of what it is we can do, if there are any policy alternatives that we can pursue. And so understanding how severe this pension issue is moving forward should be priority number one when we talk about budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, CAO.
Yeah. And if I may, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Rivas, I agree with you. I know during, if you look at the calendar there, we have the first 6 months, we normally will have a third meeting in the month, and we discuss these types of items. Every year we've been discussing it. I know Joe Paul has given multiple presentations on that, and the forecast with that. The forecast is not good. One bright side that I could highlight for the board at this time is we've been making headway over the last few years to address our unfunded liabilities, and we're very close to 80% funded. So we're progressing. However, there's still the bottom end still can fall, and there's still a lot more that we may have to come up with. So we need to be proactive, and I agree with you, Supervisor Rivas. We'll come back to the board with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this item will come back. Okay, and then we'll discuss when Joe gets back to us on that, what committee or how we will address it. Okay.
I have one question. Do we have a deadline as far as what Ms. Overstreet is working with? Should those options maybe skip the committee level and come right back to the board as far as what we can and can't do with that expenditure?
Melinda and I have been discussing this. I mentioned to her, I believe there's a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, and I believe she has, I'm not sure exactly when her due date or time is. I haven't talked to her about it, but I believe it's coming up soon in October or November. So if it is the case, we'll bring it back to you probably at the special meeting, and we can discuss it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone from the public? I'll close it. All right, let's go to the next one. Approve Wellstone's commercial card agreement with Wells Fargo Bank. Joe Paul?
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. Just want to mention on the last item, yes, we could put that on the agenda to discuss. It's related to the recognition of expenditures, so it's definitely an item that the audit committee can discuss. So on this item, it's a agreement with Wells Fargo Bank to basically enter into contract for their Wells One commercial card program. What it is basically we would like to use this program to be able to make our qualifying payments, accounts payable payments, through this card with vendors that accept the card. We believe, after a study has been made by Wells Fargo, that there's enough vendors in the county that accept them, where the fees that you see behind at the back of this proposal here would be there would be enough revenue that would cover the cost of those fees. maybe not immediately, but over the next couple of years. That's one item that we're looking at. The reason why we want to do that is because we want to, as much as possible, get out of the check printing business. We would like to make payments electronically, so that if checks are lost, we're not looking for those checks. There's a lot of money costs associated with handling checks. The other item that, the other thing that this agreement does is basically it replaces our CalCard program. There will be cards that would be used for the payments, expenditure payments related to travel, lodging, and air transportation. So that's what this agreement will do for the county.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor Munzer?
None.
Supervisor Vitello? Supervisor Medina?
No.
Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public?
Are those rates negotiable?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Anyone who wishes to speak to the board must come to the podium and issue a speaker card.
I'm sorry for speaking out like that. I was just thinking about when someone offers, there's going to be a big contract for Wells Fargo, and when there's negotiations being done, maybe some of those expenses can be negotiated.
Thank you. Okay.
The best way I could answer that is that the fees are basically set by Wells Fargo. When we reach a certain threshold of payments, we're earning basically a percentage on those payments. That covers the cost of those fees for the county. And with our existing vendor database that accept these cards, we know that we're already over that threshold.
Thank you, Joe.
So eventually, the plan is that this will actually be a revenue generating center for the department.
Marty?
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'd be interested to know if there are any other options. And the reason is Bank of America obviously is off the table. They threw us out, if my memory is correct. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, Wells Fargo has admitted to opening up millions of accounts feloniously and essentially stealing the money from those accounts on cards that people did not apply for. Recently, if you've been following this story in the newspaper, they've also admitted to a new scam, which was to force people taking automobile loans to take out automobile insurance with them at extremely excessive costs. So they've done everything but walk into your house, put a gun to your head, and take your wallet. Well, obviously there's no penalty for that. Just come on, who's the next guy in line? Well, it looks like we're the next guy in line. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. Their reputation isn't worth a nickel. They've cheated the most vulnerable people in the society, the people who don't have the power to protect themselves. So, I don't know if there are any other options, but if there are any other options, I'm willing to hold Wells Fargo accountable for their felonious actions against the people who use their services. And the idea that the idea Wells Fargo has is we're just going to go up there, get caught every time, and go out and continue to do business just like we did the day before. And we don't give a damn. Well, someone has to give a damn. And I'm not for being a big-time social activist, but I think when the banks come and basically steal money from you and get caught at it, and the only penalty is to say, Well, let's see if you can catch me while I steal money in another program. That's no way to do business. So I hope there's another program, and if there is, I object to doing business with Wells Fargo on that basis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public?
Elia Salinas, San Benito County resident. Good morning, Council. Marty just said exactly what I was going to say. What I would like to add to that is the fact that I am very uncomfortable giving Wells Fargo total control. Everything is electronic, and we know from history, current history tells us nothing is vulnerable with being able to get hacked, whether it's a lone wolf or from another country. So I really would prefer not to give total control to a bank for this system. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, those comments are well taken. I'm no social activist, but years ago I took all my money out of my meager checking account. I took it out of Wells Fargo and went to a credit union. So the Santa Clara County Credit Union that we're able to here. When I became a supervisor, that's when I took all my money out of those corporate America, right? But I do have some issues as well. But this was debated by, was it the audit committee? Was this researched?
This was actually one of the items that were offered in the RFP process for the bank conversion. This is this was the Treasury selection. So the bank was chosen during that RFP process.
All right. And so no other banks were explored, Joe Paul?
Pardon me?
No other banks were explored?
There were two other banks, as I recall, that had offered their services, banking services, to the county. But I believe that the treasurer selected Wells Fargo Bank because they have the most experience at delivering commercial services. The other banks were Chase Bank was one of the banks and Union Bank, I believe, was the other bank that submitted a proposal to the treasurer.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our county treasurer made the decision to switch from Bank of America when they said they weren't going to service it anymore to the Wells Fargo Bank.
That's correct.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody's clear. It's not this board made that decision. It was the county treasurer. Now, because we have our account at Wells Fargo, is that why we're going with this credit card, for lack of a better word, with them, or can we get the services of a credit card from someone else? Or again, is this a decision that the treasurer has made?
Well, it was in the RFP as here's the services.
It was a package deal.
These are the services that we provide, that are provided to the county. It's at our option whether we want to expand the service or not. If your board wishes, I can pursue other options for this kind of for the services that are being.
So we had a card with Bank of America, correct?
No, we never did have this program with Bank of America. This is a brand new program although they offer the same stuff, but this is a program to basically to make accounts payable payments to our vendors, the county's vendors, who use the Wells commercial card program, who are in that program, as part of the RFP, they came in and studied the county's accounts, looked at how much we pay each vendor, and determined that there is sufficient business there that we could basically come out at the, the worst case kind of neutral, and in best case kind of becoming a revenue center.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess my concluding remarks would be I would personally want to see other options put before us and explore other options before we make a decision on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Joe Paul, isn't there like a time issue with this?
No, there's no urgency
Okay.
to get this done, other than the fact that we continue to operate inefficiently in the office because we're still writing checks, and as soon as possible, I want to get out of the check writing business.
Got it. Supervisor Medina.
Yeah, I agree with you. The cost of writing a check is very expensive. Also, the amount of fraud involved when you're writing a check and people steal people's mail. That's how most of these check scams, become out in the open. But one of the things I want to thank both speakers. Well, we're a small community here, but we need to send a message and to Wells Fargo and to a lot of these other people that there has to be ethics in business. So I agree with you both, and I would definitely not want Wells Fargo part of our P card.
Okay, thank you. So, Joe Paul, do you want us to make a motion knowing we know where it's going to go? Do you just go back and come back with a different recommendation?
I'm here to do what the board would like me to do on this item. As I mentioned, there's no urgency to go forward with this. But on the other hand, because there was an RFP process, I didn't go out and look at other options that might suffice to do the same thing.
Okay. So, Supervisor Patelon?
Yeah, I thought when I first glanced at this in reviewing for today's meeting is that it was just a credit card that we're going to just utilize on a small basis. But, this is a much bigger project.
Yeah, it's a major change in how we do business in the county.
Yeah, and it appears that the bank is doing our accounting, basically.
Basically, we'll be handling the transactions associated with the payments.
Yeah, and being in business, I know several banks offer payroll services and things like that, and this is just one of those type of services that the county government could utilize to pay its vendors. And I'm kind of an old school guy. I'd rather take care of my own business in my own office and rather than farm it out. I do understand, and I'm concerned about costs as far as processing checks and reviewing vendors and verifying things, but we lose some of that control if we are turning it over to an outside service such as the bank. And we just spent a bunch of money doing that accounting system. Is that kind of undermining our investment in that system itself?
Why? My guess is that I don't think this will work without having the bank that we do business with do this process.
Right. Absolutely.
So I just want to verify that that's correct. If no other options are available, I could bring this back to the board. But at this time, I honestly I haven't really looked at that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to understand further, how this proposal is even coming about. Is it a cost-saving measure for the auditor's office, or is it just our inability to get qualified people to perform the the task that is needed to issue the checks and balance the books.
Well, I can assure you it's not that. It's simply the the way of the world is going. As transactions are occurring electronically, and that's the way banking is done. The real issue here is this bank that this is the county's bank, and so that's kind of a fundamental question that we're faced with here.
Yeah, I agree with you. If we're to do something like this, I think we have to do it with the bank that we do business with. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, moving forward, maybe you can appoint an ad hoc, Mr. Chair, to bring some transparency to this process and bring some involvement.
Good.
And then we could have a report at our next meeting or our last meeting in November.
I do have Mary Lou here. Mary Lou, you want to speak to the subject matter?
Good morning, Board. I just wanted to say that, yes, the treasurer selected Wells Fargo, and we went through the RFP process, and it is the sole responsibility of the treasurer to select the bank, and that we were already in contract when the fallout happened with Wells Fargo, so it was pretty difficult to go back and try to resurrect, the RFP and start all over again. It's a very complex process, and just wanted to say my piece on it, that that the selection process is difficult, and we couldn't just go back on the contract at the time.
Thank you. Okay, we heard information. What's the pleasure of the board?
I think Supervisor Rivas had a good suggestion as far as maybe appointing a committee to, kind of further get into the specifics and work with the auditor and bring back some additional information.
Okay, who wants to volunteer for that committee? Supervisor Medina and?
Me or you? Okay.
And
All
Supervisor
right.
Patello. Okay. Mary Lou, Joe Paul, please work with them on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next item is County Council receive report from the ad hoc committee regarding development status of marijuana ordinance for both cannabis business and personal cultivation.
So this is intended to be a brief update on the status of the marijuana ordinances. As far as timing, the marijuana ordinances are scheduled to go to a special meeting of the Planning Commission on November 1st, and will return to the Board of Supervisors on the November 21st board meeting. The second issue regarding timing is that the board at the last meeting on August 22nd had directed that both a ban ordinance and a cultivation ordinance under Chapter 7.02 be brought back at the meeting of the board. As far as timing, if it would be acceptable to the board, I propose that we bring back the ordinances 7.02 and 11.15 at the 11/21 board meeting, and then if they do not pass, if the new chapter 11.15 does not pass or the 7.02 does not pass, specifically the 7.02, then the ban ordinance would come forth to the board at the first meeting of December, so that you would not receive both a ban and a cultivation ordinance on the 11/21 meeting. You would receive a proposed cultivation ordinance, and if that doesn't pass, then the ban ordinance would come back at a subsequent meeting if that's acceptable. The ad hoc committee is looking at a proposal, and we'll have to finalize it with the ad hoc committee, to limit the number of cultivation sites in the county to a specific number. Potentially the geographic boundary in South County would be removed, especially if the number of cultivation sites is very limited. The setbacks for the 5-acre parcels, that there would be a variance process, because we would have a limited number of cultivation sites, so there would be a ranking system to determine which of the cultivation sites should be allowed to be permitted. That's under 7.02. on Chapter 11.15, which is the personal cultivation ordinance. We're doing revisions to that. One would be to prohibit the outdoor cultivation of less than 6 plants. And then also, one of the main questions before the board today is whether or not to keep or delete the registration requirement for cultivators less than 6 plants. Currently, there is a registration requirement. I believe the board would like to have that potentially removed. I know that law enforcement representatives at the ad hoc level have requested that be kept, so that they have a list of sites that have cultivation of less than 6 plants in the county, and that aids law enforcement. But there's been also issues raised: if it's legal, why should we have a registration requirement? So I'm proposing that to the board. If you don't want to make that decision today, we can present it in both ways in the ordinance that comes back on 11/21. But I thought that was a key decision point for the board. And if there's any questions.
Questions of the board? Let me open up to the public. Do you have any speaker cards, anyone? Anyone from the public?
Yes. Peter Brazil.
Morning, Chair, members of the board, staff. I'm going to cover 3 quick things. First of all, the ordinance itself. We've been at this quite a while. I've pretty much been here since the start. You guys have put a lot of time, effort, and money behind this. I think right now we have kind of amended the draft ordinance to a point where I think it's in good shape. And I'm just impressing upon you guys, with this much investment in it, let's move forward and get this done. That being said, I'm suggesting that you look to Monterey, and maybe my clients might grumble a little bit at this, but that you start having self-reporting for tax purposes. It's come to the point where you guys need to start generating some revenue from this, which is the whole point, I guess, in the end for the county. Lastly, on the issue of permit limits, I'm hearing a switching of language here from permitted sites to permit limits, and I just want to stress the importance, and I have spoken to some of you about this. On the permitted sites, I understand that that's within your purview. You guys decide how many actual locations, the understanding being you're talking more of a CUP, the land use designation to the property, as opposed to permits. And permits are unique in the cultivation sense. With manufacturers, dispensaries, operators of this nature, they only need 1 permit. Cultivators are different. No greenhouse is designed the same size or indoor cultivation. You need to use different size permits to kind of, in a puzzle sort of format, put these permits in place. So some operators could need 5, 6, 7 permits depending on how their configuration is. I'm just saying, understand the difference between permit limits versus permitted sites or permitted operators. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No, bring it back. Okay, what's the will of the board?
I think it's just a report to receive, isn't it?
Excuse me, just to receive the report. Okay, it's just to receive the report. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the public's input.
Did we want to decide on the personal?
It's up to the board whether you want to address anything specific or just receive the report and direct staff to continue to work with the ad hoc committee.
Supervisor Medina?
Well, I just had a couple of questions here. I mean, there's 2 different things going on here. It's the personal and then the cultivation. The personal, we are pretty much at a stalemate looking at, do we want these people to register or not register? That's what I would like some advice from the board members.
Okay. All right, Supervisor Botello?
I think register.
Monsieur, thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Because this is something new that is coming before us. I prefer that this be re-agendized for our next meeting, first meeting in November 7th, I believe, and that give at least myself ability to talk to staff and see what is.
Okay.
Yeah, I have, I'm with Supervisor Botello. I'm okay with, making sure that they register, but at the same time, I think that if we come back with certain action items that the board needs to take action on. I think that would probably be most appropriate. Supervisor Munzer just mentioned.
Okay, so I think there's consensus that we'll wait till the 7th and to allow us the opportunity to know what that means by registering or not.
And also, when is this going back to the Planning Commission?
It's going to the Planning Commission on the 1st.
On the 1st. Okay, so then we'll be ready on the 7th then.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and just, Mr. Chair, for clarification, our delaying any action today to the 7th is not going to affect this going before the Planning Commission, and then
We'll just have to
eventually
draft
coming
it.
back to the.
No, we can draft it in the alternative, I think, to the Planning Commission, so they can consider both sets of language.
Okay.
All right, good. Is that
Yep.
Supervisor Medina? Okay. Okay, now let's move to 18, receive staff report on the Pacheco Creek levee repairs and authorize the county administrative officer to execute contracts and perform the work consistent with the previous budget appropriations.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recluse myself
Okay,
as I
that's
have on previous items of this topic.
Duly noted. Thank you,
Thank you.
Supervisor Botello.
Okay, this is just also intended as a brief update to the board and authorizing 3 different action items. One, it's authorizing the CAO to execute the contracts to perform the work consistent with the previous budget appropriations. 2, and those vendors still need to be, are in the process of being identified, and the work will be presented to the CAO for final approval. 2, authorize the CAO and County Council to approve modifications to landowner agreements as necessary. We presented in the packet the landowner agreement. Now, these, we've reduced the numbers, so we're not asking for landowner agreements for all 13 property owners, only the properties that we need to access to repair the levee. And we have 1 landowner that's already signed it, and the other 2 are in the process. We're presented the agreements to them, and we have not received their signatures back, but hopefully they'll be coming in shortly. And 3, approve the landowner agreements and authorize the chair to sign the final agreements once executed by the landowners. On today's date, I did pass out a 1-page form to the board. The last whereas on that form, whereas at the October 10th, 2017 Board of Supervisors meeting, the county approved a budget augmentation of $350,000 for repairs. And if excess funds remain after the repair of major levee breaches, then those excess funds will be allocated to repair other damaged systems of the levee system. We're proposing that in response to one of the other 2 landowners' requests that if there's excess funds, that they be allocated to other repairs. I don't know that there will be excess funds, and they have not approved this final language, but that is an issue with getting a signature. So I just wanted to have that presented to the board to see whether that language is acceptable. And then we're going to continue to work to get the landowner agreements from the other 2 sites so that once the contract's been prepared and let, that we can proceed with the work as soon as possible. It's a basic indemnification agreement in here, and it allows consent to enter the property and perform the work.
Thank you, Barbara. Supervisor Medina?
I'll wait till the end.
Supervisor Supervisor, I'm going to open up to the public. Any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Bahasa Al-Tafi.
Good morning. I would like to thank staff for their presentation and also Supervisor Medina for spearheading this challenging task in getting things resolved with the agreement. I have signed the agreement as of Friday, and I know you're still waiting for 2 more signatures from the other landowners, but since you do have my agreement signed, I would appreciate it if you would start the repair process on my property as soon as possible. Since rainy season is coming, last week when there was rain, I woke up in the middle of the night in a panic thinking, oh gosh, I hope the levee doesn't overflow. So with this heat wave, hopefully things will remain dry and it will be easy to go in and do the repairs. So I urge the board to kindly advise staff to start the repairs as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention.
C.A. Lindsay.
Yes, my name is Chuck Lindsay, and I reside at 7210 San Felipe Road. We are the property owners of the second farm that has an experienced breach of the levee, which is 80 to 100 feet wide as well. On January 1st through January 3rd of 2017, I met with Kevin O'Neill on our property along with the Granite Construction people, and we agreed that if they were to go ahead and enter our property, since we have an access road to the levees that is much smaller than really capable of handling the 3 large Caterpillar excavators and the 60-plus trucks that rumbled up and down our driveway, tearing up our driveway, and but able to enter the creek bed to do the removal of the debris. This was prior to any breach on our property. On January 1st and 2nd, it was still dry. On January 3rd, we had a downpour of rain, which weakened the levees. It was questionable whether or not the excavators could even get themselves out of the creek bed up over the levee mounds to exit our property. They did that at the cost of munching down 2 sections of the levee that now remains unrepaired. At that particular time, Kevin O'Neill was very open with me and also showed me the contract, because we were part of the contract, allocated $25,000 to repair our driveway area back to the normal state with the hard packed rock after the equipment left. Only $10,000 of that allocated $25,000 was spent to keep it under budget, according to Kevin O'Neill. That still is not up to full satisfactory status. However, the other 2 areas of the levee mounds, if you would, or the levee banks, which now sets approximately 1,000 feet to the east, down east of the existing breach, is still very, very badly compromised. The mounds have been reduced in elevation by as much as 4 feet. That has to be repaired. I brought it to the attention of Kevin O'Neill through discussing it with Mark Medina just in the last couple of days or last week, and the council, which was mentioned today through Mrs. Thompson over there, indicated that under that particular area, $350,000 was now allocated, and any monies beyond that would be allowed to repair.
Summarize it, sir.
If I may continue.
Summarize it, sir.
I'm sorry?
Please summarize it, 10 seconds.
Okay. We've come down from an allocation of $635,800, which was initially engineered out by the USDA. We reduced that down to $491,000.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other speaker card? No. Anyone else wish to speak? None. I'll bring it back. What's the will of the board?
I move to approve the resolution of,
Just per staff recommendation.
well, per staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 4-0. We will take a 5-minute break.
It is a really, I'm impressed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first open up my remarks by thanking all employees in all labor groups, as well as those in the unrepresented groups as well. Your hard work and dedication has not gone unnoticed. We want to thank staff for all the sacrifice that they've had to endure over the last few years. It's been difficult at times, and those that are taking the extra, doing the extra step and the extra mile to keep things together in each office. So I wanted to personally thank all employees for that, all their hard work. Today at this time, we'll be discussing or highlighting the agreement at this particular item, number 19, with SEIU and the county that they've reached. And I'm just going to highlight a few items, Mr. Chair. The agreement here highlights a 3.5% COLA effective 10/2017, a signing bonus of $1,200 effective 10/2017, a 0.5% COLA effective 4/2018, a 3% COLA effective 10/2018, and a signing bonus of $1,000 effective 10/2018, as well as holiday closure, 4 days, 32 hours in 2017, and a holiday closure, 3 days, 24 hours in 2018, and as well as a restoration of the G-Step for all employees. So those are just some highlights, Mr. Chair. I'd like your board to go ahead and move forward with the staff recommendation, and I'd like to go ahead and pass it back to your board.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the board?
Yeah.
Supervisor Patel?
Yeah, I too want to thank the SEIU and all the bargaining units for the hard work. I want to thank our negotiating team for its efforts. For the most part, I think everybody came to the table to work in their interests and get a good deal for the people that perform the work in public service. I still think that work needs to continue. We do have a retention issue that we need to continue to address and evaluate different positions where we might be still kind of behind the market. And so, again, I just want to express my sincere gratitude.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too want to thank the employees and first of all, for their hard work. All the time that I have served on this board, it has been a struggle to make ends meet, because I entered in during the recession, in the middle of the recession, and as we seem to be moving forward in revenues, I am committed to standing by our employees and making them as whole as possible from what they've given up in the times past. And I'm looking forward to working with them and to seeing that happen, because we know we're behind on our wages because we're having so much trouble hiring people. And I think the report today about the vacancies shows that, and just knowing how we have struggled with hiring positions, we know we are. And so I want to see that us move forward and doing right by our employees. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. There's not much more I can add other than the fact that obviously when you talk about these labor negotiations, it's always tumultuous, is what it seems like. We have challenges. We have challenges as a county. Certainly, We appreciate all the hard work, and we all believe that our employees should be compensated at an equitable level. But at the same time, I think what's been challenging for me as a member of this board since 2010 is that we are resource poor. You know, we could talk, as I just mentioned, about, you know, the pension crisis we face. But the truth is, we have a responsibility to our taxpayers to live within our means, and that's been very challenging for us to accomplish. And, you know, and it's been challenging for local governments across the state to accomplish. And so certainly this isn't going to get any easier moving forward. And so that's what makes these labor negotiations extremely, very challenging for every member of this board, for our staff, and for our workers. You know, but certainly we're committed as a board to make sure that that we continue a very transparent and open relationship with all of our workers here in San Benito County. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Rios. Okay, I'll open it up. Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Medina.
Thank you. Well, it goes from all unicorns and rainbows to my doomed little speech here. You know, in today's world, it takes a specific event or even a tragedy for everybody to get together and really work together as a team and really care about each other. And this is what I see right now. I see we went through the negotiations. Everybody seems to be on the same team now, working together, but we can't lose that momentum. And it often happens. After you have a tragedy, it goes back to normal after a couple months, if not longer. After a specific event, like passing of this agreement, it goes back to normal. We can't allow that to happen. And us five sitting up here, we need to orchestrate that to make sure it doesn't happen. We need to make sure we listen. We need to make sure we follow through. And we need your help also in return. And these may just be words that people are hearing, but I'm passionate about it. And I think we have to continue on a daily basis, not on a every 2 year or whenever we do the negotiations. So I want to make sure you hold us accountable for what we're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, my comments is ditto. I think all the supervisors said exactly what I wanted to say too. So let me open up to the public. Do you have any speaker cards?
Marty Richmond.
You don't want to go first. It's okay. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I love that word, tumultuous. That's a great word in the English language.
I can't pronounce it.
All my remarks, rather than me getting up 10 times in a row here, my remarks actually apply to each and every contract, so I'm going to say it once, and you don't have to replay the tape, but it applies to all of them. So first of all, let me say this. In my dealings with county employees and employees of the city of Hollister, I've always been satisfied that they are good public servants, okay? I worked in the public sector for more than 20 years myself. That's what, if you're in the Army, you're in the public sector. You're working for the public. I expected to get paid like everybody else does. So I want to say thank you to all the employees of the county and all the employees of the city while I happen to be here for the kind courtesies they always extend to me, and I really appreciate it. A couple of issues that I would like to bring up, and one of them Supervisor Rivas has already brought up, so great minds run in small ruts maybe. I would like to see with these contracts some kind of financial analysis, because they have long-term implications. They're not just, here's what happens today, and here's the decision we made, and sometimes that makes people happy. Other times they go, I'm not happy with that. That's just human nature. But the problem is down the road. What does it look like down the road? And we know as far as the PERS system goes, down the road doesn't look good for anybody. Not just us, anybody. And we've all seen the charges PERS is putting on now for unfunded liability. You get your percentage, and then you get the $1 million over here that says, you owe us 10% of salary plus this $1 million for unfunded liabilities. And, you know, they're down to a 7% return, and they may have to go lower because they're not getting their 7% return. They had a very good year this year, but when you look at 3 or 4 year averages, they're not making it. This year, they happen to do very well. But, you know, you got to do very well every year if you're going to do that. I'm not getting a 7% return. I think I'm a pretty good investor, and I don't think most people are getting a 7% return. CalPERS is probably going to have to reduce their rate again, and when they do, there'll be another $1 million charge tacked onto your PERS. So if you want to keep the public informed as to what this is really going to cost, then you've got to start putting the financial analysis in your agenda. Merely saying it's a contract and here's what we're going to do means nothing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Susie Caston.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Supervisors. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for your comments. That's well appreciated by all of us. My name is Susie Caston. I'm a county worker. I'm also part of this year's SEIU Local 521 bargaining team. I stand here with my team on behalf of our chapter representing the workforce that serves our community. Our contract that's in front of you today is a strong step forward. We're committed to continue putting our community first, and we intend to work with and push the county to follow through with increasing services and investing in its employees, as our folks will continue to struggle with the rising cost of living, healthcare expenses, and their basic day-to-day needs. Our county is growing, and we need to make sure that we grow our workforce with it. We must progress forward together as a county in committing to the services our employees provide. Our platform during bargaining was asking you to value us, to acknowledge the fact that your frontline employees matter, and to respect your workers and their families. This MOU that we fought for heads us in the right direction, and we look forward to reminding you every day that our SEIU 521 chapter employees will not be left behind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Anyone else from the public? I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2017-13.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
And under the call of the question, also items number 2 and 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara, what was that again?
Also, there was items 2 and 3 in addition to the staff recommendation.
Okay, that's right. That's correct.
I mean, in addition to the resolution.
For staff recommendation. Okay, there was a motion and there's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. 20, county CEO, Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned earlier, probably won't be repeating everything, but I would like to highlight the items. This particular item is the agreement with the DSA and the county. And this particular item is 3 point, very similar. Almost all items are very, very similar. But this particular item is 3.5% COLA effective 10/17, signing bonus $1,200, 10/17 effective, 0.5 COLA effective for 2018, 3% COLA effective 10/2018, signing bonus $1,000. $10/2018. As I mentioned earlier, we're requesting your board to move forward with the staff recommendation.
Questions coming from the board? None? I'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public? I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move adoption of resolution number 2017-111 and per staff recommendation on items 2 and 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Number 21.
Again, similar item. This particular item is 3.5% COLA, effective 10/17, signing bonus $1,200, effective 10/17, 0.5 COLA, effective 4/2018, 3% COLA, effective 10/2018, and a signing bonus $1,000, effective 10/2018. Holiday closures, very similar to SEIU, 4 days, 32 hours in 2017, and holiday closure 3 days, 24 hours 2018. We're requesting your board to go ahead and move forward with staff recommendation.
Questions coming from the board? None? Open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None, bring it back. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to adopt resolution number 2017-109 per staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Yes.
110.
110.
Resolution 2017-1.
I'm sorry, 110. Thank you, Chase. I was checking you. You pass.
Okay. There's a second?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries. Congratulations. Number 22.
This item is with the MEG unit and the county. Very similar, 3.5% COLA. Again, these are just highlights. 3.5% COLA effective 10/2017. Signing bonus $1,200 effective 10/2017. 0.5% COLA effective for 2018. 3% COLA effective 10/2018. And a signing bonus $1,000 effective 10/18. Restoration of the G-Step for all employees. Holiday closure 32 hours in 2017, 4 days, and holiday closure 3 days, 24 hours, 2018. So again, these are just highlights, and we're requesting your board to move forward with staff recommendation.
Comments, questions from the board? Open up to the public. Anyone? Close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll get this one right, Chase. Move to adopt resolution 2017-109 per staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
And number 2 and 3.
And 2 and 3 as stated.
And 2 and 3 as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 23.
The next item is the MOU for LEM and the county. This particular item is very similar. Is highlighting. We'll be highlighting this 3.5% COLA effective 10/17. Signing bonus $1,200 10/17. 0.5% COLA effective for 2018. 3% COLA effective 10/18, and a signing bonus of $1,000 effective 10/2018. And we would effectively request your board to move forward with staff recommendation.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? Open up to the public. Close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move adoption of resolution number 2017-112 and per staff recommendation on items 2 and 3.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations. Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is with our unrepresented employees, which is confidential management. Again, this is very similar. We're highlighting 3.5% COLA effective 10/17. Signing bonus $1,200 effective 10/17. 0.5% COLA effective for 2018. 3% COLA effective 10/18, and a signing bonus of $1,000 effective 10/18. Restoration of G-Step for all employees. Holiday closure 4 days, 32 hours 2017, and holiday closure for 3 days, 24 hours in 2018. We're requesting your board to move forward with staff recommendation.
Questions, comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a comment. There's probably a small group of employees. They're part-time. I think they tend to work in the ag department seasonally. I'm not sure what the official term we use, whether it's seasonal, part-time, but my understanding is they have not received any pay increase for a number of years. They fall outside of every category that I can see, and I think I would like to have staff look into that and report back on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Duly noted. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Open up to the public. Anyone from the public? I'll close it. I'll make a motion. We authorize the resolution number 2017-108 with number 2 and 3.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries. Congratulations. Item number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is with respect to the department heads, and this particular item, again, is highlighting 3.5% COLA effective 10/17, signing bonus $1,200 effective 10/17, 0.5% COLA effective for 2018, 3% COLA effective 10/18, and a signing bonus $1,000 effective 10/2018, a restoration of G-Step, as well as the holiday closures of 4 days, 32 hours in 2017, and a holiday closure of 3 days, 24 hours in 2018. And we're requesting your board move forward with staff recommendation.
Okay. Questions, comments of the board? None. I'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None. I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve 2017-114 and items 1 and 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
And 3.
And 3.
Yeah, that's what I meant. 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Okay, number 26. CEO?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'd like to just quickly comment on a comment that the public made as well, Mr. Chair, if I may. On all the agreements that we've had so far that we've covered, administrative staff has done short-term and long-term analysis. We'll look at addressing that in our next go-around and making it, tying those into our agreements. But we definitely have been cognizant of healthcare and converting to a flat rate and what our responsibilities are from a county. So, but we'll probably look at that. Just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that.
Supervisor Batalo?
Yeah, I'm happy that the CAO brought that out, because that without the cooperation of our bargaining units in working and understanding the costs and ramifications of these salaries and benefit packages, we can't do it without partners at the table. But this county is in relatively good shape with the unfunded liability compared to a lot of other counties and cities, and we got to still kind of keep an eye on it. Continue to work with our bargaining units to understand where we're at and continue to try to improve things. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
CEO?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this particular item, I'd like to preface that over the last 5 years, administration, with your board support, has taken each year to address major issues succinctly. About 5 years ago, when I came on board, there were some real serious issues fiscally, and your board took on that and addressed healthcare, pension reform, healthcare reform, to address our unfunded liabilities. That was about 5 years ago. The following years, or the following year, your board probably remembers we had to address safety. There were some folks that would come up to the podium concerned about the amount of deputies we had. If your board remembers that was about 3-4 years ago. And your board went ahead and took the initiative to address the safety in our community by adding personnel in that office. The last two years or so, 3 years, we've seen incredible building, and your staff has been directed by your board to address revenues, to look at what we can do to increase some of these revenues. We've had development agreement created. We've been pushing hard with the PV2 project to generate more revenue to address salaries that we've been talking about, as well as roads and other things that we need to address. This last year, if your board recalls, and my opening remarks for this year's budget was to address salaries, to address the lack of employees. As you saw today, it was approximately $1.3 million in vacancy budgeting to address that. And if your board recalls, we actually did address this. Our assistant auditor, we actually came to your board and addressed the salary because we needed to address it. There was just an issue there. Assistant county counsel, there was an issue with salary there. We actually brought that back to your board, and your board approved it. Your board also approved the chief building official, adjusted total comp for the doctors that we have. We actually we actually addressed the public health officer, occupational therapist, public health supervisor, nurse, and so on, to address the pay. And that was something that that we had discussed in the onset of this year. We talked about it and we are currently actively doing our best to address that, as you saw today with our last MOU agreements. One of the items that we need to continue to address is job spec, the spec itself. Some of them are poorly written. We need to address that. We need to work with our labor groups with that. As you saw, I believe at our last meeting, we've actually had some specs come to your board to tidy those up, to make those accurate and correct. So that's next year. That's one of our goals, is to come back to your board and to continue to do what we're doing, but also to address those specs, and also, too, to probably address associated pay with those specs as well. Today, we're here in open session, really by state statute. I don't know if you recall or recall this. I'm sure all of you have looked at it. It's State Government Code Section 54957. I'm not sure if you recall or if those in the public know what that is, but that's basically, in essence, the Brown Act. And with all labor negotiations, most of them are behind closed doors. We have labor folks representing the county, as well as labor folks representing our employees, that meet in confident, and they work through the labor process. Today, this particular item, as well as the next item, really we're not dealt with the same way. And I wanted to make sure the board and the public were aware that these particular items need to be discussed in open session and per that section code. So with that being said, there is some concerns that we have when we looked at compensation this year, as we talked about. I believe at our board retreat we even discussed compensation and the comp study, and we addressed that. The most egregious compensation, or out of not in a line where it should be, unfortunately, is the Board of Supervisors. We received a compensation study that actually shows that the Board of Supervisors are out of whack, so to speak, by a wage and pension of negative 49.7%. A total base wage 45.1%. So, with that being said, pretty egregious. Now, when you look at other counties similar to us or close to us, Monterey and Santa Cruz, their salaries are well over $100,000 for Board of Supervisors. Total package including is close to $200,000. Your base salary is at $48,000, or approximately $48,000. I actually had staff do some research. We actually looked at the last time your board salary was compensated or changed in compensation, and I believe it was 2008 report. Basically, there was an addressing of just the vehicle allowance, which really didn't change anything other than just incorporated into your salary. 2002, basically it's been the same since 2002. Okay, I believe Supervisor Reeve has just added some more work for your board today, right, with the Wells Fargo Ad Hoc Committee, and as well as looking
I
at...
conveniently didn't put myself on that committee.
as well as CalPERS. And to really look at it and to spearhead that with local legislatures, with state and even federal legislatures to address these types of things. In this particular case, CalPERS would be the state. There's been a tremendous amount of committees that you're a part of, and I'm going to go ahead and read them out because I'm kind of baffled, because I'm very, very busy, because I'm in most of these or working with you with most of them. Animal Control Ad Hoc, Association of Monterey Bay Governments AMBAG, Audit Committee, Area Agency on Aging Committee, Behavioral Health Board, CSAC, Children and Families First Five Commission, City Revolving Loan Fund Committee, Community Corrections Partnership, Council of Governments, County Facilities Committee, County Policy and Procedures, Emergency Medical Care Commission. solid waste franchise agreement, farm labor camp, fire protection committee, gang prevention committee, general plan implementation, which still working on, governance committee, gray water, impact fee committee, intergovernmental committee, IT committee, juvenile justice committee, landfill committee, library committee, LAFCO, marijuana committee, mobile committee, Monterey Bay Air Resource District, National Association of Counties, Paro River Watershed Flood Prevention Authority, Regional Council of Rural Counties, RDA, Solid Waste Franchise Agreement Committee, Veterans Park Commission, the ones we just added, and there's some more there's more. Another big one that your board is now a part of that's really, and these are really important things for our community. The Monterey Bay Community Power, JPA, being a part of that. There's a tremendous amount of work that you do that hasn't really been looked at or addressed over the last, at least decade and a half, probably 2 decades. So, with that being said, there's many hours. A meeting. If I recall, you used to have packets, and probably Supervisor Batella remembers this, and Supervisor Dela Cruz. I believe you guys actually had. There were 3-wing binders. There were 3,000 pages, maybe more, and you got to read through 2,000 or 3,000 pages. I know Supervisor Rivas probably can attest to this from an educational point of view. Each hour of attendance at school is usually about 3 hours of homework. So that means you're going to have to do about, if an 8-hour day of board meetings, you're going to probably have 3 hours of prep, or 3 days or 2 days of prep time, just because there's so much involved in understanding what you're looking at and having to make weighty decisions, multi-million-dollar decisions, is just requires a lot of time. So, and it goes on even beyond that from an elected point of view. Like I mentioned, that there's Santa Cruz and Monterey counties supervisors. They have chief of staff on hand. They have staffers to work and to help them assist with certain things. Your board doesn't have that. You have to do kind of do it all. Assembly women, assembly men, senators, they have a lot of staff on hand. They have a lot of area to cover, but they do have staff on hand to assist, to help, to guide, to direct, to schedule agendas, so on and so forth. The state and Fed legislature has done a lot over the last few years. And what that means, more work for administration, staff, as well as Board of Supervisors. An example of that can be found in many facets of local or recent passages of legislation. An example of that would be AB 109. Many of you recall that with AB 109, what happened? The state actually said, you know what, we're going to kind of do without the state prison systems, or at least not do without, but reduce the population. And where is that population going to? It's going to the local county, or the issues are having to be dealt with appropriately within the local counties through the CCP to try to create certain things. And who's a part of that CCP? The Board of Supervisors have to be a part of that, to have input, direction on where those funds go for what programs work in our community. A fallout of that, or an item that is developed from that, is now we need to create a larger jail. Did that cause issues and more time for supervisors as well as staff? It sure did, because now we have to find more money. We have to look at addressing that. We have to work with our legislatures to make sure that those funds are there, and so on and so forth. Another one that's kind of looming before us right now is on the federal level is Obamacare. Maybe revamping that, the Affordable Care Act, how that will be impacted. What actually happens with that? in my conversation I had with our Health and Human Services Director last night, it has an impact, a direct impact on county employees. About 8 employees, 8 or so, which is about $800,000 to $1 million impact in our county if things do change. What does it mean for our community? Well, Hazel Hawkins and also to our health foundation that we have here locally, there's about 14,000 residents within our community that could be directly impacted. Your constituents, our fellow neighbors that may be impacted by a change, and that we as administration staff as well as the board has to have that leadership and guidance to try to keep our county whole. IHSS, we just heard from them this morning a little bit about them needing to get a pay raise and an increase for the work that they do. In years past, we really didn't have too big a part in working with them because they were kind of under the state umbrella. The state had a budget, if I can get this straight here, we go, $1.76 billion budget, which is now $647 million more than what it was prior, which means that's about a $600,000 impact on our county. They've obviously worked with counties, and for some counties, a significant impact is looking at 1991 realignment to address that, and we're going to be able to do that within our county and not hit the general fund. But these are serious things that our board and as well as staff need to move forward with and take the lead on addressing these significant issues. We're talking millions of dollars of issues with the state. So these are just a few items that I wanted to bring to the board's attention concerning the work that you do, that we do together with staff. But I think that from a transparent point of view, this item has to be on the agenda, should be discussed. It's up to your board which direction you want to move forward with. But I just wanted to highlight those items and hand it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments, questions from the board? None? I'll open it up to the public. Any speaker cards?
Marty Richmond.
Marty Bishop from Hollis. I also brought some facts and figures for you. I recently had the occasion to go into the Bureau of Labor Statistics and pull up the 2016 earnings in San Benito County. People working in San Benito County, not for the government, but for private industry. There were 14,029 of them. 10,222 of them, 72%, almost 73%, didn't even make $48,000 a year that you make for a part-time job. If you take that to $50,000 a year, 82% of them working in private industry did not make $50,000 a year average for the year. And you want to make $70,000 for a part-time job, and a job as a group that you've not done well. You gave the CAO a big raise, and now he's returning the favor. Well, I'm only going to get 3 minutes to close this up by saying what happened to the other side of the ledger, all the stuff you guys loused up really bad. How about the landfill? You're taking 1,000 tons of garbage a day from outside the county, and you took it at 1/8 of what it was worth, and you forgot to put in the impact fees on the roads. How about the resource recovery park that has never recovered 1 penny in resources? How about all the hiring and firing that you've done over at the RMA and the planning department? Do you consider that good management, picking the right people? How about all the grousing you did about Gavilan College, but you never did anything officially? You never filed anything with the state? You never filed anything with the Commission on Community Colleges? You never did anything but grouse about the $25 million they walked away with. How about the Trespinos Water District, which you guys keep giving a bypass because you're your buddies? How about the development agreements that you've screwed up? How about all these things? There's a reason that you can't hire any staff, because we don't have the revenue. And we don't have the revenue because you've done nothing to encourage revenue for any private industry in this county. You've done nothing but talk as a group. If you were making the same kind of money from government aid that Santa Cruz was making, and you have a chance to do that, and I'll wrap up by saying they're making $1,900 a person. You're making $119 a person.
Thank you, Marty.
Kathy Castillo.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. I just wanted to make a quick little thing that we were saying here. So on the staff report, it said that they're lining it up with the 25% to 60% with the judges, but then on the options, they gave you option 1, 2, and 3, which is 35, 40, and 45%. I'm just kind of curious what happened to that 25%, because that would be, you know, I mean, basically that would be more in line with about 52,000, which would be kind of 20, you know, at 25% of what the judges make. So I think that would be closer to what would be acceptable in my little brain. Also that, you know, you weren't the only ones that did get raises since 2002. There's a lot of other county employees that were topped out and stuff. The only raises that we ever got was the cost of living, which is the same thing that you guys got the cost of living also along with us. So that's one of the things with your raises, I think. So I'm kind of a little disappointed to see that there'd be such a high jump in these salaries at this time. I just, you know, right after, I mean, we struggled to get that 3.5% that we got. When we first went into negotiations, they wanted to get, you guys wanted to give us 1%, and that was kind of a joke. So it's kind of like to see this, like right here, I mean, you know, we appreciate that we got what we got, but it's kind of a little disheartening to county employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card.
Morning, Susie Caston. I am here as chapter president for SEIU. I wasn't going to speak to this item necessarily because I do know that you're bringing it back for a decision in a couple weeks, but I wanted to let you know that I have been doing my research. It is an interesting topic. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I don't necessarily agree with the numbers per se, but that's part of my research that I'm doing. I appreciate the fact of that you are involved in a lot of different committees, that you do take a lot of your own personal time besides your regular things that you do on a daily basis to dedicate to our community. I appreciate your availability when I need to speak with you personally. I do think that probably does at some point in time deserve a little bit of compensation. Right now, on the heels of our MOUs that we had to fight pretty hard for, maybe it's a little bit more of a timing issue that I'm struggling with. Maybe if this had come up, 8, 10, 12 months down the road, I wouldn't have such a question about it. Again, I don't dispute it. I would like to bring up the point that, as Ray had mentioned on the comparisons with Monterey County, those are full-time positions that those those Board of Supervisors work. There's a lot of discussion to be had on this, and I will be approaching you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards? Any other person? None? I'll close it. Okay. Discussion, wish of the board.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Rios.
Yeah, I do appreciate the comments that were made, and I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, for being a leader on this matter, because this isn't an easy topic. It's not an easy topic by any stretch, as we heard from the comments. But I can say, speaking from a personal experience, the compensation, in my opinion, of a member of the Board of Supervisors makes it very difficult for people to have a full-time job and to fulfill the duties of this position as a supervisor. Certainly I appreciate Marty's candid comments. We have fallen short on several occasions. Why we have fallen short, is it the competency of this board? Is it the fact that we can't, we don't have full-time supervisors to sink their teeth into a lot of these issues? And I believe when I was elected in 2010, I was one of the youngest supervisors elected in nearly a quarter of a century here in San Benito. And why is that? Why? It's because young people who are just starting a family in this county can't run for supervisor. The job is too demanding, and you can't support a family with the income that's provided with this job. I remember the night that June night in 2010 when I had won. I was excited. I was celebrating with family and friends. And then my wife turns to me and says, "Congratulations, now you have to go get another job." And I did. I have not only one other job, but I have 2 other jobs. In addition to my position as a supervisor, I work at Gavilan College as an adjunct professor teaching at nights. I work full-time at San Benito High School as a student support manager. I've worked there in several capacities now. This is my 6th year working for the district. And I do so just to make ends meet. It's not easy. It's very difficult at times. But I've stuck with being a supervisor because I love this county where I've resided my whole life, and because I have a burning desire to give back to my community. Perhaps 20 or 30 years ago, when the county was smaller, the job of a supervisor may have been less time-consuming. But times have changed, and the demands, in my opinion, have grown for this position. If you look at the surrounding counties of Monterey, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, all supervisors there are paid 3 times more than a supervisor in our county. And I know the comment was just made that the difference between us and Monterey County, they're full-time. We're full-time as well. We get paid part-time. But I can tell you, having worked for the Board of Supervisors, this is a full-time job. They do not work any more or any less than we do. So there is no question that there is merit to this agenda item. There is merit to having a discussion about this. And as our CAO pointed out, the only way we have this discussion is an open session, which is not an easy discussion to have. And I applaud our chairman for raising this issue and for putting it on the agenda. But at this time, I personally need to see more information. I'd like to hear from local constituents about how they feel on this issue, how they feel on this matter. And I'd also like to have more time to review the budget implications. So at this time, I can't support it. I'm going to vote no. But I applaud my fellow supervisors for raising the issue. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello?
Well, very well said, Supervisor Rivas. I respect your position. I want to thank the chairman for bringing this issue forward and our CAO for the information provided. I've been on this board for quite some time. This is my 4th term going in. When I ran in 2003, I won the seat in 2004, I didn't even give it a thought of the salary or the benefits or anything like that. My family came from a long line of individuals that wanted to just make the community better, whether that was through church, through community service organizations, as well as through involvement in local government. And I admired that, and that really kind of fostered the desire to serve on this board ultimately, is to make San Benito County a better place. And, I really took exception to Mr. Richmond's comments. It's loaded with inaccuracies. And it's easy to sit in the back row and every couple of weeks and just tear apart the work that this board does, as well as its leading staff with those inaccuracies. It's easy to do that. So I'm going to move on from that. And, Supervisor De La Cruz, or Chairman De La Cruz, and I have had this discussion a number of times as far as the compensation for the work that is required by individuals serving on this board. And I've had conversations with staff, of course, as well as with people in the community, my constituents. And it's interesting, even though I'm very fortunate, I have a good business, I'm able to run it, but I'll tell you, over the past few years, as time has been required to work with staff on issues and constituents and things that need to be done, I barely have enough time to run my business. It probably costs me money, and I could see where it's been said that people aren't interested in serving on the Board of Supervisors because it's really it's a thankless job, and B, it really isn't, people that are qualified wouldn't look at this as far as a way to, serve the community. I'm concerned about, the rates. I would have been completely happy as a clam to get what we approved today for our employees, and I think I've always have said that the ship has to rise evenly. That put us, on par for where this job should be at to attract people that are qualified to serve on the Board of Supervisors, that have the skill set to be successful in setting policy and creating the workforce that we need to provide those services to our community. I don't know. But we have to have a formula in place. I mentioned earlier about the retention issues that we have with our different areas of the county. I think we have to address that, and it is salary based. It's about take home pay. One of the areas that I don't think we've addressed it in full yet. So I know we're not making a decision on this today. I want to continue to hear from my colleagues that work for other businesses that don't have the luxury that I have, being self-employed. I answer to myself. I certainly don't want Mr. Chapman to report that the supervisors voted themselves a massive pay raise and be known for that. I'm more of a guy that I want to be noted to introducing to the county Shelby O'Neill, who's going to save the world with her ban on plastic straws in the Monterey Bay. So, I'm not ruling out one of these options or a different option, Mr. Chairman, but I know this is a full-time job, but I also know that we have to live within means and bring everybody together on this as a county. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Botello, I can say from my personal perspective, working as a controller for a private company and the demand to go to outside San Bernardino conferences is a toll. I utilize my vacation, I utilize my sick time, and sometimes I don't get paid for that day because I don't have the fortune to have 2 weeks of vacation or 2 weeks of sick time. It is a dollar-for-dollar commitment that I make. I get less paid by putting less hours of work. By allowing one of these options to move forward, it gives me that flexibility to start attending other meetings such as the Monterey Power, which has become more active pretty soon next year, and CSAC and NACO and all these other committees and organizations that we have to attend. I brought this on the agenda knowing that it's a very, very hot issue. Unfortunately, because this is a political issue, the board could only discuss this at negotiation, which is today with the public, and we are having it today. And I agree with your notes, Supervisor Botello and Supervisor Rivas, and I would recommend that we go do one of these three options, and go to the next for the November 7th meeting for consideration. And that's my thoughts. Supervisor Medina or Supervisor Munzer? Supervisor
Go.
Medina?
Well, I've been about 10 months into this endeavor here. And I do have a full-time job, and I actually have two full-time jobs. That's the way I look at it. Is I put in about anywhere from 37 to 42 hours a week here. I have taken some vacation time to work on different things for the county. And when we look at what's happening here, we talk about other communities. We spoke about the county of, I think Monterey was brought up. And I know Robert's worked for the county in Monterey. And I look at it as, yes, they do have a higher salary. And they also have a lot of staff, too. I mean, they have, I believe Robert was an aide, I believe, after a clerk. So when you look at them, they have aides to help them. I'm probably at home every night sending emails out to Ray and Louie, and they can attest to it. It's, I'm known as a squeaky wheel. So I can only speak for myself. I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time because I'm passionate. I spend a lot of time because I want to give back to the community. And when I decided to run for this office, I knew what I was getting into, somewhat. I didn't realize how many hours it was, but it was a lot more hours than I expected. But that's life. That's what life is. But I think we also need to look at the salary compensation, because this board is not going to be around forever. I'm not going to be around forever. I want my replacement to have the same passionate, the same momentum, the same ideas I do. And we need to attract good people. And when I look at what Robert had mentioned earlier, was the younger generation, they just cannot afford, number one, to run a campaign. It's costly to run a campaign. And number two, to live on these wages without having another full-time job or part-time job, whatever you want to call it. So I'm looking with aligning with Jaime at the option number 2. And I want feedback from everyone. Please feel free to call me anytime you want. Please feel to email me and give me some feedback, some advice. And in return, I will give it 110%. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
This is very difficult, but I know we struggle with putting together ad hoc meetings, staff meetings with the other members, working around their schedule and when they're working. I know I was running my own business along with my sister, and she actually asked me to take a pay cut because I was going to be gone. She knew I was going to be gone from the store at least half the time. So I ended up taking a pay cut from my personal business to be able to serve here. I've never mentioned that before, but it was something I chose to do because I wanted to be here to serve my community. Since then, the business is closed. It's given me the flexibility, more so than my other members, of serving on committees and going to night meetings out of the area and working with the other elected officials in the region, and I have enjoyed that immensely. But to be honest, at this salary, it has been a struggle for my wife and I. I understand what has been said. I understand how it looks. But because this has to be done in open session, it's not done very often. And so I'm leaning towards either option 1 or 2, definitely not 3. But I think there needs to be a higher level of compensation for this position, for this job, because it is a full-time job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Knowing that Supervisor Munz is willing to go with option 1 or 2 and Supervisor Medina's option 2, how about if we do a compromise of 37.5% in the middle? Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Munzer?
I'm sorry.
37.5?
Yes, I can. I will go along with that.
Okay. Is there a motion on the table?
And that's just to put that number.
Correct. Right. So the direction is to put that into the ordinance. So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to read the title of the ordinance for the records. And then to consider the proposed ordinance direct specific percentage, which is 37.5, into the proposed ordinance, and make a motion to accept introduction, waive further reading, and continue consideration of the ordinance to the November 7, 2017 at a.m. for adoption.
Let me read the title of the ordinance for the record, if I could, Mr. Chair. An ordinance of the Board of Supervisors of the County of San Benito amending Ordinance 828, which establishes compensation for the Board of Supervisors of San Benito County, and to reflect the Board's motion, 37.5% is now in the staff in the proposed ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, move on. 27. CEO.
This item is from our elected officials. I would like to go ahead and invite, Supervisor Joe Paul Gonzalez up for this particular item, or Tom. This item is, I think, drafted by Joe Paul Gonzalez.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In front of you, you have 3 options for the elected compensation of the elected department heads. The first option you have, option A, is basically the same COLAs and bonuses everybody else received. Along with that proposal is longevity pay. As you recall, last, I think, March of 2016, all of us were up here before you, and it is kind of uncomfortable, like you mentioned, but something we need to do. We're looking at parity. Last time we asked for longevity, and basically what had happened, you couldn't come to a decision, so you created an ad hoc committee of 2 supervisors. We met, and as a result of that, you decided to give us step G, okay, which we received. The reason we were asking for longevity at that time because the appointed department heads received longevity. So we're trying to be in parity with them, but we received Step G at that time. They received longevity. Now they are receiving Step G, and we would like to receive longevity, to be on equal footing with them. Our longevity, however, is based on terms, and it's based on 3, 4, and 5 terms served, each at 2.5%. So that's basically option 1, and there's a cost associated with that, and it's in the annual report. And that would be effective as of July 1st, 2018. Option B basically talks about the same amount of COLAs, the same bonuses, and so forth, but actually having longevity studied and recommending that the board go ahead and provide 2 supervisors for an ad hoc committee to study it further. In your packet, when you talk about should elected officials receive longevity, did a little survey, and there's 15 counties in the state that we know of, and they range from mid-size to smaller counties. And I'll just go ahead and list them. All of these counties provide longevity to the elected department heads. Butte County, Calaveras, Colusa, Del Norte, Humboldt, Inyo, Lassen, Modoc, Nevada, Placer, Plumas, Shasta, Sierra, and Solano and Yuba counties. And they all vary, as far as percentages and when they start. The majority of them start a little bit earlier, at 5 years, 10 years. 1/3 of them basically provide longevity for terms served. So, and again, that's in your packet. Now, option C is basically providing COLAs, bonuses, and no longevity included in that package. So, and at this time, I try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tom. Questions from the board? Not. Let me open up to the public. Anybody from the public? Marty? Go ahead, Michael.
My name is Michael Silverman. I'm with SEIU 521. I'm on the bargaining team, and just being in the audience today, listening to the discussions that we're having, we're beating around the bush here. And the reason why I say that is we have a retention problem in this county, and we have a classification problem in this county. And our CAO alluded to that in the opening. Now we are coming up to the elected officials who've also recognized that there's a problem. But we don't have a retention problem with our elected officials. And I find it interesting that our elected official here used the Sierra counties, the northern counties to compare to, while everybody else here is trying to compare themselves locally to what's going on. And I think it sends a wrong message to give an elected official longevity pay. It's up to the voters of this county and they do that by voting and electing those officials. That's their longevity pay. They get to keep their jobs and continue on for another 4 years. So, saying that, I don't think we need to incentivize our officials anymore for staying on the job. The job should be the job, serving our community. So, given the options A, B, and C, I would urge the board to adopt the last one, option C. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Marty?
Marty Richard from Hollister. I would support a raise for the elected and appointed officials because I don't want to insult anybody. Apparently, some people think my information is inaccurate. I assure you it's all researched because they are the people who actually are supposed to run this county. That's the way it works. You're the Board of Trustees. They are the operators. They're the people I call when I want information in specific, not political talk. I don't call anybody on the board and say, how much was the total assessment here last year? How the taxes break up? Because if I called you, with all due respect, you wouldn't have any idea of the answer because there's 10 million ways the taxes are broken up and only the auditor knows because he has to check the books. So I support sufficient raises for them because it is a full-time job for them, and it's supposed to be a full-time job for them, and the people who they work for are supposed to give the authority to them to do the work and hold the responsibility, and that's the way it is. You're not supposed to hold on to everything until they rip your fingernails out, and you can say, I've been to 4,000 meetings, but I didn't do anything. They have to make it work every day because they're here every day. So I would support both for the appointed and the elected to make sure they're adequately compensated to be competitive. And even though our revenue is nowhere near the revenue of Monterey County and nowhere near the revenue of Santa Cruz County per capita, adjusted for population. I've seen their budgets. Like I said, their budgets at Santa Cruz brings in $1,900 per capita in government aid. Our budget brings in $119 per capita, and theirs brings in $1,900 per capita. That's your job, not their job. They're doing their job. I support a raise for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Anybody else from the public? Then I'll close it. What are the wishes of the board? Mr. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. Tom, a number of those counties are pretty smaller counties, and it's probably fair to say that our elected department heads are somewhere closer to 200,000 in salary.
Well, some of those counties, Solano is much bigger than us. Placer County is much bigger than us. So there are counties that are, I can go through the list again, Yuba, a little bit bigger than us. So, and some of them are smaller.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that concerns me, I know we were talking about the supervisor's pay just a minute ago and how far off we are as far as our salary gap, and I don't recall seeing the salary gap for our elected officials. That makes a little difference, at least the way I'm going to approach it. Do we have that information,
No.
Mr. Espinosa?
Those weren't included.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
And one of the things we pretty much gave everybody at the pay raise, the 3% and so forth, just a few minutes ago. And that's a pretty good. If you're making 200,000 compared to 50,000, it's a quite a bit more. I kind of want to get more information, Mr. Chairman, if we can in the next couple of weeks, and consider this with some of the comparisons, if that makes any sense.
What you're asking for is option number.
Well, I'm kind of asking that not to make a determination today of any of the options and maybe bring it back.
Okay. I would actually support option B, create an ad hoc committee to hash those things out
That's kind of what I was.
Yeah. Supervisor Medina?
You know, an ad hoc committee is, if that's what the board would like to do. But when I did the research for us, for the board of supervisors, what I did is I went through every county, Transparent California. I'm on Yuba City right now, or Yuba County, I'm sorry. And I need to look at all this information myself. I need to make sure, looking at all the elected officials, looking at the regular pay, other pay, and total benefits, and then come to a conclusion that this way. I don't know if an ad hoc committee is needed for that. I think we all have the capability to look at this online ourselves. I mean, another ad hoc committee is something where two people are going to decide on something and then bring it to the boards, or I should say, educate the board. I think we all need to educate ourselves on this separately. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Rivas?
Mr. Chair and Mr. CAO, you have to remind me. I remember myself and Supervisor Barrio sat on the previous ad hoc when we discussed longevity. We couldn't come to terms with longevity. Was that last year?
That's correct. It was prior to her departure.
That's right. That was last year.
Yeah. And if I may add one other comment to that, and I think part of the concern with the ad hoc at that time were the terms and the percentages. I think that was kind of the concern, because currently most employees at 20 years service receive 2.5%. At 25 years, 5%, and at 30 years, 7.5%.
It was, and so what I recall, it was not moving forward, but it was calculating previous time. Correct?
I think so. I believe so. That's correct. Yeah.
That concludes the report, Supervisor Rivas.
And if I may add further to that, I think the request by the electeds is to change the time frame to be a little sooner than the 20-year, 25 and 30 years. I believe it's 2 terms, which is approximately 8 years, and so on and so forth. So that percentage would be different than what's the standard so far with most employees. Just to make sure the board's aware of that. So
it would be roughly 9, 13, and 17. So.
Okay. Supervisor Bunser?
Well, for me, option A is definitely out today. Option A is definitely out today. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards doing the ad hoc again, because I need to understand, because I would like, if we're going to do longevity, it needs to be in the framework of what we do for the rest of the employees, set up the same way as the rest of the employees, and also to look and see what the cost that physical analysis would be. So I'm leaning towards option B right now. Have the ad hoc form, Mr. Chair, and have it studied again.
Yeah, I would prefer to do option B too, unless Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, I myself, like our previous action we just took, I can't support it. I would be okay with a 3.5% increase and a bonus. But as far as I think we have to study the budget implications further, as far as the impact it's going to have, especially the longevity, the PERS impact, and whatnot. So.
Okay, fully noted on the record. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve option B and create an ad hoc committee of myself and Supervisor Munzer if option B does push forward. Is there a second?
Second, only to ask a question.
Yes.
If we went down the road of option C, and denied the longevity, can it still be studied in some fashion, be it ad hoc or just I don't know. Would we have a mechanism to study or
yeah, you could
to have staff come back to us?
Yes, we could do that. If your board wishes to direct us on that matter, we can do that. But it's similar to option B.
I mean, it's still good. I know it is. Yeah. It just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of support to option B as the way it's written right now.
Okay, then I'll pull back my motion. Supervisor Munzer?
Then I'll throw out the motion of adopting option C with the recommendation that we direct staff to further study the longevity and the fiscal effects.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Under
second
question,
discussion?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair. And so just to clarify with staff, so this action would include the first chart that's in the packet with the $1,200 bonus and then the 3.5% COLA?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that also includes the option, I meant the points 1 and 2, as well as the option C. Oh, as far as the staff recommendation, the bullet points 1 and 2, and then the third bullet point is option C.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. What resolution number is that for option C? Chase?
115, 2017-115.
Okay. There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor of option C, say aye.
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 Aye. Against? So, I'm sorry.
I'm for it.
You're for it? Okay, 5-0. So, option C.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go to closed session.
Closed session, number 28, closed session conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives, Dania Torres Wong, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Linda Casillas, Barbara Thompson, Steve Coffey. The employee organization is SEIU Local 2015. Number 2, under Government Code Section 54957.6. Number 29, closed session public employee performance evaluation, Title County Council, Government Code Section 54957. 30, closed options, conference with legal counsel, anticipating litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivisions D4 of Government Code Section 54956.9, number of cases 3. Closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivisions D2 and E2 of Government Code Section 54956.9, number of cases 1. Facts and circumstances justifying the closed session is a request to enter a tolling agreement in response to a Public Records Act request.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to discuss any of the items of closed session? None? Okay, we will go to lunch and be back at 1:30.
1:30?
Yep.